Okay, well, I guess we can get started. Welcome, everybody. We have joining Eric Dallimore and myself, we've got Jasmine Abena Colgan and Marissa Martinez. And Jasmine is going to talk about her exhibition, Human Currency, and then Marissa is going to join in the conversation with Jasmine when they discuss the photographic development process, Ghanatype, that they work together to uncover or devise. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric Dallimore real briefly. Eric, do you want to say something?
I do. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Happy Saturday. I hope you got your Saturday morning cartoons and cereal in. So with this exhibition, it was really exciting to bring to have Jasmine join us here at the gallery this summer. The show opened up on July 18th and it'll close on August 30th. So if you're joining us today, we still have time to visit the gallery. Our gallery hours, we're here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 5. So please do stop by to come see the show in person. We met Jasmine a little over a year ago. Eric Nord at the Colorado Photographic Arts Center did a portfolio review of Jasmine's work. And Eric came back from the portfolio review and I, of course, said, well, how was it? Who did you see? What did you see? And he said, there's this amazing artist who has created her own photographic process using gold from a mine in Ghana. And just to mention that alone, I kind of freaked out and said, like, wow. I have a background in my Bachelor's of Fine Arts is in photography, so I have a deep darkroom knowledge. So of course I was interested in this person, this mysterious woman who creates prints out of gold, something I'd never heard of before. I've heard of platinum printing, I've heard of silver printing, and all other sorts, but never gold. And so that piqued our interest. And then a few months ago, during the pandemic shutdown, while the galleries closed, a good friend, Diego Rodriguez Warner, reached out and said, hey, I met this artist. Her name is Jasmine Colgan. She is, has this remarkable body of work. And I said, oh, cool. So we met, and then Eric's like, I know Jasmine Colgan. She's the artist I told you about a year ago with this amazing photographic process. So it was great to meet Jasmine and learn about her exhibition, her body of work. Leon does tend to focus on emerging artists and emerging voices within the arts. And so when we found out that Jasmine, beyond her remarkable work, that she has, her MFA show was being canceled due to the pandemic. And so fortunately, with some programmatic shifting, we were able to bring in Jasmine. It was really exciting to work with a local artist who maybe necessarily might not have been able to have this grand moment in her career for her MFA. So this show does coincide with Jasmine completing her master's program this summer, which she might talk a little bit more about. So Jasmine, if you give me one more second, I'm gonna go ahead and formally introduce you. Jasmine Abena Colgan is an American Ghanaian artist, educator, scholar, entrepreneur, and social activist born in Colorado. Jasmine, as I mentioned earlier, is completing her master's in fine art from the University of Colorado, Boulder in summer 2020. She's a master printer with 19th century historical photographic printing processes, including platinum, palladium, silver, and as we'll discuss later, gold. In 2019, Colgan was a NEST fellow and collaborated with a PhD candidate in chemistry to successfully develop the Ghanatype. That PhD candidate is Marissa Martinez, who's joining us. This is a gold printing method using raw material from the Obuasi mine, which initiated the transatlantic slave trade. Her artwork is inspired from the contemporary diaspora of mixed culture in the social world, a woman who is black and white, Irish and Ghanaian, African-American, but declares herself a part of the Vitiligan race and a woman of colors. In 2017, Jazz was awarded the Face of Vitiligo at a world conference highlighting her successful social empowerment while conducting field research for her nonprofit organization, Tough Skin. She has been featured in publications such as People Magazine, was associated with TEDx Mile High for Wonder, Women in Art Experience. Colgan has developed international relationships with several diverse communities and recently established Tough Skin into an enterprise that sources shea butter from Ghana to handcraft protective organic skincare products. Thanks all for joining us. Jasmine, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm like kind of like that awkward turtle in a sense. So hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for having me talk about my work, and also having the chemist. I've always called her the chemist. The person that I'm working with always with like the chemistry aspect of the photography is Marissa, of course, and thank you for her. And thank you to Eric Squared, both of them, they're wonderful, and to Leon. This is really cool to do this. I don't have access to share my screen, by the way, so if someone doesn't mind, we could talk, and like we have some slides that we would like to share. That kind of goes a little bit more in depth and detail about the printing process. And I think we're waiting just a moment for that.
Hey, Jazz and Eric, I believe I can share my screen and show the slides if you would like.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, yep. Let me try that, guys. Share screen.
Cool.
All right, here we go. How's that look?
Cool. Right? Everyone see? Okay, cool. You good? Okay, cool. So, I mean, this is the first book that I've done, and it wasn't a book before. It was kind of a photographic study, and we got a lot of the sources and the information from a chemist in England, but I'll let Marissa talk more about that when we get to the chemical aspect of it. You know, gold is something that really has been something that's distracted the world over greed, and to be able to have the power to use this material and turn it into a photographic piece of work, I think is really meaningful, and it's an homage to my ancestors. So a little bit, I mean, we can go on to the next slide if you would like, but like, if this is like one of the books, this is the book that we kind of collaborated on. It's a study, so has information about the scientific studies and like the process that we went through to make the actual print. So I'm Jasmine, and Marissa is over by the Ghanatype. Can we switch it to the next slide, please? Okay, cool. So that's like the original book. So we have a physical copy of the book, and instead of printing a whole bunch of gold pages that would take up a lot of material and a lot of resources, we scanned it and we turned it into a tangible copy so that people can actually have an experience with the gold. And so that's the original kind of just like its own metaphor, its own symbolism and value. Yeah. So if we can go on to the next slide. This is Ghana. Of course, most people, a lot of people think Africa as a country. So it's really nice to be able to be from both countries and having that blessing to be able to experience a little and share a little bit of the culture. So if you can see right in the Kumasi region, which is right next to the Volta Lake. Yep, right there. So that's roughly where the gold mine is located. And then if you go like near Takoradi, and if you were to go a little bit closer to Accra, like that, yep, right there. So like that's about where Elmina was when we went. So like to think about the voyage from like the Kumasi region to the Elmina area, people were migrating the gold from that distance by feet. So they were walking that distance. Just to give kind of like a perspective. And yeah, we can move on to the next slide if that's cool. So it was really actually difficult to obtain the gold because it's political, but there's some issues that are going on within like the social economy in Ghana. And 2 Canadian women were kidnapped when I was there last year. And so I had a pastor go on my behalf, and he was able to bring the gold from a friend who was a miner. And so we were able to source the gold directly from the farmer in a sense. And that was really interesting to have just like organic raw gold that hasn't had any sort of material or anything added to it. It was a very hard stone, but heavy. It was heavy. It was weird. Yeah, we can potentially, so it was very small. It was 1 gram. And like the jar itself was as big as my pinky. And it was enough to make 2 vials of 0.15, so 30 millimeters of photographic gold solution, which is still in storage. So we still have like enough to print more. And then if we can move on to the next slide, that's okay. And then actually, this is kind of where I hand it off to the chemist because, well, Marissa, excuse me. This is where I hand it off to Marissa, and she can kind of talk more about the chemical aspect of the printing process.
Okay, yes. Let's see. Actually, if you go back to that slide.
I'm trying to mute myself. Hold on a second.
I'm going to take these headphones off because it's kind of distracting, the echo. All right, so yeah, this is a good place to start. So here we're showing 3 different vials, and it's all the gold solution, but at different stages of the processing. And so the first thing we had to do is purify that gold sample. And so since it was just like raw from the mine, we had to remove any other metals or trace impurities that might have been in there. And so this is actually this step is used in different industries to strip gold from like old electronics or, you know, jewelry, break it down and then recycle it. So what you do is you just add a solution of what's called aqua regia. And it's a mixture of 2 different very strong acids, and it just dissolves the gold. And so what you get in this case is gold and chlorine, which is gold that's kind of bonded to chlorine, and it forms this yellow solution that you see in these pictures. And it takes a while to completely dissolve all the gold. And after, I think we let it sit overnight, and there's still a little bit of stuff unreacted. So I think in the darkest vial, in the 3rd photograph there, that really rich orange one, that has the most gold dissolved in it, and there's still a little bit of stuff at the bottom. And that is not gold. That's actually, I was curious. I wanted to do some study and look at what was in there, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But it's a different metal or mineral maybe. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's left over there. So whatever is in the liquid that's causing that orange color in that vial, that is the gold, and there's no impurities in that liquid. And so we basically just take that orange liquid and separate it from the stuff at the bottom, and we have pure gold chloride solution. Yeah, do you want to go to the next slide, please? Yeah, it's just a picture, again, of the solution after much time reacting in the acid, and then the one I think that's just after a few minutes is the more yellowy one. Right, so a little bit of chemistry. Hopefully I don't bore you too much with this part, but I'm just going to describe a little bit of how you can make an image from basically gold and iron atoms. Next slide, please. I'm just going to, I put this quote from Mike Ware's abstract because it really summed up the process, and I like how he worded it. So contact printing from monochrome negatives under UV radiation yields well-graduated continuous tone images consisting of colloidal gold embedded in the surface fibers of the paper. And so if any of you or all of you have seen the prints in the gallery, which are behind me, I don't know if you can see, I don't know if it's like on my camera or not. Yeah, so behind me, those are the prints, and they have many different tonal qualities. So you get some reds, some purples, some yellows, and that is actually all the color, and in case you were wondering, comes from the size of these gold particles that form. Anyhow, so if we can go back to the slides. So I just wanted to point that out. Right, and so so this quote, that just like describes the process. So you, you know, irradiate it with UV light, and then you get this really, really nice multi-tonal quality from a black and white image. So it's pretty cool. Next slide. So this is a picture of the Obuasi mine in Ghana. And gold, so gold is really precious, right? It's super expensive. Well, compared to, you know, other materials, it's a really, you know, it's a precious metal. And I think it's really interesting how just like that concept of gold being really precious and expensive, and as Jasmine said, it's caused a lot of destruction in the world. There can be so much meaning behind this project in that, so gold is also really stable, so it's gonna last a very long time. And typically, you know, like people who print with historic methods usually use silver, but silver oxidizes, and you can tell with like silver jewelry and whatnot. But gold is like, these prints are gonna last a really long time. And so that, I think, is a cool significance of that. Because, you know, it's, if you think about history and like what is documented and what lasts through time, it's very much skewed to a certain perspective. You know, we get like one perspective of history, and a lot of that is because, you know, certain things have lasted longer than others. Next slide, please. So real quick, I'm just gonna run through this for anyone who's curious about it. So in the solution, what causes the image to form is basically, oh, I thought I removed these, oops. The silver atoms are gonna react with the iron atoms in this other solution. And so when you mix them together and you shine light on them, that forms solid gold. Next slide. So it's just, this is a very simplified chemical reaction. This is, it's called a redox reaction because it's basically the movement of electrons from iron to gold. And so iron, well, I'm not gonna go into it, but anyways, yeah, so the gold turns from this solution and solidifies into what we commonly think of as gold. Next slide. Right, and so when you have a negative, so what we do is we paint for those of you who are not familiar with this type of printing process, you paint the iron and the gold mixture onto your photograph paper, and then you put the negative on top of that. And so basically you're gonna get like this inverted thing, and then you put that into the UV box, and you get an image that that's, you know, the right, yeah. So the image is formed where the gold and the iron are exposed to light, and it forms solid gold. So the image is made from solid gold. I don't know, I used a lot of words just to say that, but anyway, yeah, next slide. Right, and this is just showing, you know, you have these two atoms and they're separated, and they're in one state, and then when the light is turned on, the iron, that triggers the iron to turn the solution gold into solid gold. And this, actually, it should say gold solid, not gold plus. Anyway, yeah, next slide. Right, and Jasmine, do you want to continue with the rest of it?
So, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. So this is the printing process, which was kind of, it was an interesting journey to kind of read the chemical aspect and then being able to apply it to real life. So this is the first file that we were able to to make, and yeah, I pretty much picked this up from Marissa one morning, and then I had lunch with my brothers, and then that same day I went to Boulder to go print, and it was kind of an interesting study to see how gold was reacting as the artist, because I've always worked with silver, and then I worked with platinum and palladium for a year, and so this was a really interesting transition. And if we can please go on to the next slide. Thank you. And that's actually what the gold looks like in the jar. It was, it's really interesting to see it turn from a rock, like solidification into, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know, the residue. Like all these particles was really interesting to see. And if you hit the light right, it would kind of like shine and glisten in the daylight. If we can go on to the next slide. So with a mixture of the three chemicals that Marissa was explaining, I use a hockey brush, which is a bamboo soft brush that's made in Japan, and it doesn't have any metals on it, so it won't tarnish or alter the solution. And so with the cotton paper, if we can go to the next slide, I think that's, yep, perfect. So I use 100% cotton paper because it's porous, it acts like the skin, and when you coat the paper with this solution, it shows a very light yellow pigment. Actually, I think it's in the next slide. But okay, so actually, here's actually a funny story, true story. I got into an argument with Marissa about, like, I was like, no, dude, you don't need humidity to do, it wasn't an actual argument, but it was a funny disagreement, because I was telling her, no, you don't need humidity to make this photograph, like, change colors, and she said, otherwise. So it was a funny kind of conversation, because like it was like this, the chemist obviously knows more about like the chemical reaction than the artist, but yeah, it was this like funny conversation. So this is the cotton paper that's being prepped first. So it's pretty much like where we have like a heating, yeah, I don't even know what those are called, but like a, yeah, heating pad, not a heating pad, what are those called? Thank you. Sure. Yeah, we'll call them like a heating burner or burner. Sure. That didn't sound that well there. I'm so sorry. But these are some cotton strips that we were going to coat. And if you go to the next slide, those are the images of the brush strokes. You can see the brush strokes, and these are some of the images, yeah, before they're coated, before they're exposed to the sunlight. And as we go on to the next slide, this is a negative that I actually had as a 120 millimeter film camera in Ghana. And so this was taken at Bogoloshi, which is the battery wasteland in Accra, which the United States sends a whole bunch of the waste of the batteries that are from like Energizer and Duracell all of those get sent to this area, and specifically in Accra, and they go there to rot and waste, and like the soil's eating it up and absorbing it, and then the plants are growing new life that's pretty much derived from like the battery toxins. And this image right here is a scanning of the 120 film, and this is one of the cattle that's eating the plant that's been growing from the land in Africa. And we get all of our resources from Africa, so this is something that, like, I cried. Of course, most people are becoming empaths, I think, because I feel like we're like kind of starting to wake up and see what's going on in the world, but we're destroying this world and we don't even see it. And we get a lot of our resources from this country, and to have the cattle eat the battery waste, then the human eats the cattle, and so we're still ingesting some sort of particles of battery waste and sort of toxins. And me being the person that I am, I was like, Marissa, can we work with battery waste? Is that a thing? She said, no, probably not a smart idea to transport battery waste overseas from Africa to America. It's not the best idea. So we can go on to the next slide, if that's okay. So after you expose it, I did a contact printing into an exposure unit, and after you expose it, you humidify it, and then when you humidify it, then you put it through a series of baths, and that kind of washes it. And if you can go to the next slide, these are the strips that were the testers. So with the humidity, obviously these ones were, I think we used humidity. I don't remember anymore because there's been so many different prints, but always, if you're printing in the darkroom, always use graphite to write and document what you're doing so that you can always be able to repeat it or replicate it. But we were really interested in working with citric acid, different developers that were shared within the reading from my flare, and with a combination with the humidity and the developers were able to get a variety of colors. And then we can go on to the next slide. And so this is one of the examples that it's in the article he was stating that first of all, you have to pay close attention to like what you're doing, but if you're successful, you can create a color print from a monochromatic negative, and like with the red, the yellow, and the blue, you're able to create like a black and white image that would turn into color. Did I say that right? Yeah, okay. Cool. The yellow I've discovered, that's actually kind of why I told her, like, you don't need humidity, it doesn't work, and the top one is the first attempt. And yeah, so like, I mean, of course it worked, it has like this gold, but it didn't have like the actual contrast and tonalities and ranges of like the print itself. So yeah, then we kind of started to work with the humidity, and that's where the richness and the tone. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, my bad. Apologies, y'all. I get a little fidgety. But yeah, so this is a picture or photograph of a young boy during Ramadan, and this is taken in Tamale, Ghana, in the northern region of Ghana. And yeah, it was a nice test to see what the color range was. But if we go into the next slide, I'm not sure. Okay, here is this install that Yes Ma'am project at Derek Velasquez gallery. And so this was a nice installation that showed the variety of the tests that we did. And as you can see in the center, like these images are, they're very faint. So I don't believe that we used humidity for those. And then we were also interested in the cooler humidity as well. So the center image had a humidifier. So it was like cooler humidity that we were using to create that image. And then the warmer humidity was able to bring out richer tones. We can move on to the next one, please. This is an example of one of the cooler tone or the cooler humidified images. And you can see that it has like a light purple and blue image, tonality under like the toes of her feet. And we can move on to the next one, please. Okay, cool. And then this is the positive of that negative that was from the Agbokoloshi battery wasteland. And this is the image after it's gone through those series of baths. And so like the series of baths, like, so with the series of baths, the first one is a developer, which it's a variety between like 4 different chemicals, and then they give you different color ranges. And then you put it through a series of fixers that remove any metals that have kind of lingered or unexposed sensitizer. And then it's washed for a long period of time. And I don't know, the more intimate that you get with the print, I've noticed that if you were to cut the same size print and then throw or like toss the sheet onto the table, on the coffee table, without the actual print solution, it's light, and if you throw it with the print solution, it's heavy. It's a really interesting difference. We can move on to the next one, please. And then this is this is not a very nice or like very visible image, but this is one of the images that we, as well as the previous image, but those 2 images we submitted to Boulder for like, when we were funded from the NEST grant for this project. Yeah, we kind of gave those images to them. And this is essentially this copper wire that's been recycled from tires in Ghana. And some of the shoes as well, I mean, it's really cool how the artistic practice in Ghana is very similar to my artistic practice in like the sense that you use all the materials that are available to you. So I don't know, it's just everything has a purpose, everything has a meaning, but it's really interesting to see the fact that people reuse this wire for something else. And people will reuse the rubber on tires for the bottom of shoes. And so it's this really amazing recycling mechanism that's resourceful, and it's better for the environment. And then can we go on to the next one, please? Okay. And then those are the images framed that we went, that they went to the Boulder Museum, or it was like a library that was for the NEST, and the opening reception was about a year ago. And we can go on to the next slide. And so these are some of the images that we worked together on. Pretty much we were interested, like first, like the test strips were talking about the print, like the printing process, and then we were interested in the developing process. And so these prints here are different varieties of developers that we were working to see. So like this first, the one that's black and white with the faint color, that first layer is coated with platinum and palladium, and then you let it dry, and then you go back again, and then you coat it with some metal. Well, excuse me, with the gold, the Ghanatype. And then, yeah, it added actually a little bit of realness to it. It was kind of interesting. It's like a little bit of warmth, but it wasn't like a full spectrum of color. And these images that are on the outside of it, those are, I spray painted some cowrie shells. So some of the cowrie shells that are in the bag are black, and the black shells created a negative over the transparency paper. And so then I took the transparency paper and contact printed with the Ghanatype and created like a negative or a positive from a negative, but they're like negative, they're negatives of these cowrie shells. but it's, yeah, we can move on to the next one, please. Thanks. And then this bottom one on the bottom right in the middle, that image is the attempt to do with 3 layers of gold. And then the image above it is the attempt to do with 2 layers of gold. And these 2 on the side are just 2 different types of developers. I don't remember. I think one of them, the bottom one, I think is citric acid. I think citric acid brings more of a bluer or richer tone. Yeah, possibly, yeah. And then I believe the top one is citric acid, but yeah. So, and then the one on the right is the first layer of gold. That's with the cattle that are eating in the Battery Wasteland, but yeah, that was without humidity, so it created more of like a lighter yellowish tint or tone. And if you were going to register your images with the negative and reprint over it, it becomes challenging because you want to pre-shrink your images or your paper before you print again on top of it. And we can go to the next. So, I mean, since it was such a visceral journey, like it was just so much physical interaction with the earth and with people. There's a preciousness with like the original book, and so we are excited that we are like making a limited edition that has an original Ghana print in it, but they'll be actually done in the rest of the slides. But and they'll also have I don't know, we're still working on like the limited edition kind of copy, so that'd be kind of interesting to kind of keep working on. But the open edition is straight up copy of the actual original, and it's really educational and it's informative and it's a nice study, and yeah, I don't know, it's really dear to me, you know. Okay, we can move it on. And then these are some of the images, and they're also installed at the gallery. It's a chemical process, and that's Marissa's hand that's there in the center, and then some of the images of like the raw gold and then the material after. And then always, I mean, wear gloves whenever you're working with chemicals and chemistry, I guess. You know, it's an important thing, so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what else is going? What else do we have? I think we have a couple more. Do we have more slides, Eric, or? Okay, cool. So the image that is right on the left-hand side is going to be one of the Ghanatype limited edition with a cowrie shell, and then they're both, I don't have the one that's scanned with Marissa's signature because I think I scanned these before, but it also has like Marissa's signature on it. And we can go on to the next slide. And then these are the images drying. I kind of do them in batches, as you can see, like they're kind of nice as a family. And then we can go on. Can we move on to the next slide? Sorry. And then this is like the packaging process. So these are the images that are installed in the show, and we can kind of go through these as well. And this was done by Doug, who's a local framer. And then these are the images up close. And then another one I think we have, yeah. And each one is really unique and individual. So they have their own identity and their own characteristics, but they're still the same, like they're the same shell. So it has this representation of the human body. Like we're all humans, we all have our own body, and you know, we all have our own characteristics, our flaws, and our own type of beauty. And then we can go on to the next one, and that is the image that's installed at the gallery. Okay, so I think that the next slide. Perfect. Cool.
And so, Jasmine, do you want to talk a little bit about the cowrie shell and the way that the cowrie shell is kind of used throughout the exhibition as kind of one of the major themes and symbolisms used within human currency?
Sorry, I have to like mute it because I get a lot of kickback. But so the cowrie shell is, it was originally harvested from Cyprus, and it's named after Cyprus, which is a small island in the Mediterranean Sea. The water is very warm there, so the snail likes to reside there. But other than that sea, the Mediterranean Sea, it also has an expansion to other seas near India and Florida and California. But anyway, back to like the actual story, people would harvest these snails and take only the shell. And so if you're familiar with snails, snails are similar to turtles. So their shell is their home. That's what keeps them alive. And they spend their whole life building this shell from different particles from that's around them. So it's similar also to the human body, like how we have all of these things that we accrue throughout our lifetime, and it becomes a part of us, and it becomes something part of our journey, part of who we are. And, you know, like the life of the snail is symbolic to the human body as well because of the numbers. So one of the pieces that are in the gallery is called One Human's Worth, and that is a sack of cowrie shells that are scattered on the floor. It's also like right in front of one of the nooses that is covered in cowrie shells, and the cowrie shell was a form of currency before that was used as a method of payment to pay for livestock for people. And it's heart-wrenching to hear the fact that people use one material object to purchase with another. Before the cowrie shell, people were doing guns and metals, but they, like the English and like the Europeans found out it was cheaper to do cowrie shells, which then was $100, and now it's about $60,000. So in like real terms, a human's body to the government is worth $60,000. So cowrie shell doesn't come from Africa, but it comes from, I mean, Mozambique, around that area. It has like a little bit of warm waters near Mozambique. But, you know, like with indigenous culture, the cowrie shell represents wealth and power. And people, even in indigenous American culture as well, also had wampums and cowrie shell. That was like the purple part, like, which is the arch of the shell. So it's like the curve of it. But like there's like a huge universal connection with the cowrie shell, and that was used in China as well as the first method of monetary system. But you know, like these shells hold so much history, and you know, it's something that people will just like look right past, and they'll not even acknowledge like what the power of this one small shell is. Is that okay? Yeah. Are there any questions about like the shell?
So we can open it up to questions from our viewers. If anybody wants to type in a question in the chat box, then we can relay it. I think everyone can also see the chat box. in the meantime, if anybody's like kind of formulating, trying to figure out what to ask, behind me, if you can see behind me, is one of the thrones that Jasmine created. This is the male throne, and then I think behind Jasmine you can see the female throne. Jasmine, if you want to like maybe talk about the process of embellishing these chairs with the cowrie shells, and you mentioned how the cowrie shell was such a significant part of the economic system within Ghana, but then there was also kind of, because it became so important culturally, then there was a certain amount of symbolic meaning that was attached to the cowrie shell as a result of the importance within the economic system, symbolizing abundance and fertility. And so do you want to maybe talk a little bit about those beautifully intricate and embellished thrones?
Well, Ghana no longer has the cowrie shell as a monetary system. They are actually, I think my mom found an article the other day about like all of West Africa is going to come together and create one monetary system. So it's kind of cool that the continent is kind of coming together to just make a voice. But the shells that are used represent womanhood, and so like this throne on this side, for instance, is meant to represent more femininity, and then the throne that's behind Eric, Nord, is meant to represent more masculinity and grounding. So the power in this throne here in particular, the cowrie shells are embedded into the seat of the chair, and it's an educational chair. These are teacher chairs that were like this style of chairs from 1920, and it was most likely probably constructed or put together by a person of color, probably in a jail, for instance. So it has like this way of like reclaiming and taking back ownership of material objects that were used against us, or like slavery, or objects that we, like laborious tasks that were kind of put into our field of work. And so this chair in particular is meant to be elegant and fragile, and then the other throne is meant to be more, it's meant to be more grounding because it has like more earth on it. So like this throne right here is called Na Nkumuna. Na is a term of endearment. It's a name that is given to a female with high title, like a respectful title. And Nku is shea butter, so it's a universal organic salve that has a natural SPF, and so and like everyone is able to use everything of the shea tree that produces it, and it's really, really special to villages. Like people are able to use the entire tree for many things. And then Muna is Muslim or Arabic name for a woman of desire. And in Ghana, Muslim and Christian or Catholic people, it's like one of the only countries in the world where everybody can coincide on religion. And I think that is the future. Like if people are able to just accept people for what they believe and what they pray or preach, or, it's something that we all want the same thing. We all want a good world, but it's not something that is going to be happening if we're fighting someone who has darker skin because they're praying 5 times a day for a better world. And, it's like one of those things like, okay, so yeah, anyway, I'm not going to talk Christian or Catholic politics or anything, but, and then the throne that's behind Eric is Nana Kofi Banze, and Bonzi, sorry. So Nana is also the same thing like Na. It's a term of endearment for a male. So it's like prince or princess for Na. So it's a nice name for their spirit. Yeah, in that sense. Kofi means that he was born on a Friday. Everyone in the Fanti culture, and I believe it's also in the Ga and also Ewe. So every tribe is different, but there are different names for different days, and there's a female and a feminine name. Oh, well, female and feminine, that's the same thing. A female and a male name. So there's two differences. Like I was born on a Tuesday, so my middle name is Abena, and then if a boy was born on a Tuesday, he would be Kwabena. And my brother is born on a Monday, so he's Kojo. And my other brother is born on a Saturday, and he's Kwame. And his wife is Ama. So, and she's also born on a Saturday. So it's interesting to see like the similarity and the differences between the two. And then Bonzi is my grandfather's name pre-colonization ? I have to ask my mom again, but that was like kind of like the name that was given to my grandfather's grandfather, I believe. So in our tribe in Winneba. Those are kind of like a little bit about the name.
Well, we do have a question from Camille. She is asking, Jasmine, is this your first solo exhibition? And do you have any projects you're currently working on for after the Leon exhibition?
This is my first solo exhibition. I think that if you knew me in graduate school and you came into my studio, it was a little overwhelming because there was a lot of energy in there. It was full of a lot of work. So, yeah, so it's nice to kind of be able to put everything in one place and look at it. For future projects, I have a couple of ideas on the burner, in the fire. I'm interested in like cultural heritage, so I want to photograph people in their cultural attire. So that's something that I'm looking forward to doing. I've already set up maybe like a future shoot. So I'm working on that with some people in the Denver area, kind of who's like between two cultures, because I think that like people who are mixed of race or ethnicity, for instance, it's hard for us to have like this particular identity. So it's a nice way to kind of celebrate that.
Wonderful. And Eric Dallimore, is there anything that you would like to add before we kind of wrap it up today?
Me talk more, of course. So yeah, love that question, Camille, because seeing what you've done and created here, Jasmine, has been absolutely remarkable. And this being your first major exhibition, I cannot wait to see what you're going to do in the next year to 5 years to 10 years to 30 years. For an emerging voice within the arts community, you've created, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased, you've created some truly museum-worthy pieces that speak to, the current social justice movement and what's happening in the world today. That's not a thing that people can easily do. So you are, it's impressive to see what you've done at this, early stage in your career, yet though you're early in this career, you do have a solid voice. So some people tend to think that just because it's a first show that there's so much more to grow into. I think your art, for all intents and purposes, you're there. This is it. You're at the highest level one could hope for in their own work. But that being said, I cannot wait to see what you do next and after this. So hopefully we'll have the honor of showing your work again, but hopefully larger organizations such as the Denver Art Museum, MCA, will recognize your talent. And just don't forget about us little people when you're hanging out. When the Guggenheim comes knocking at your door in the Tate Modern, just remember your friends here at Leon. So Eric Nord, if you wanted to say a few last words, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Like we had mentioned, this exhibition is at the gallery on view until August 30th. Our gallery hours were here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're also here Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 5. Eric and I also do welcome private viewings. If you'd like to schedule something outside of those hours, please don't hesitate to ask. And so with that, thank you all so very much for joining us. There are several publications. There's a great interview Jasmine did on CPR. There is interviews in the Denverite, I believe also in 303 Magazine. Maybe Westward did a piece, I can't remember. And then we also have all of this on, okay, Westward did not do a piece, according to Eric Nord. And all this information is on our website, neongallery.org. Brand new website is unrolling this week, so you have to check that out. You can learn a lot more, so that's all I have to say. Eric, Jasmine, Marissa, thank you so much. If any of you want to say a closing thought, please go for it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And please, if you haven't had a chance to come by the gallery, I sincerely urge you to and see this work in person. The photographs in particular that use the Ghanatype are just really extraordinary to look at in person. The iridescence, the color within them is just really stunning. Thank you very much, Jasmine and Marissa. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon. We will be posting this, a link to this meeting online. So if there's anyone that you believe might be interested in listening to this, once we post that, feel free to share with them. All right. Everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.
Good job, Jasmine.